Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the 115th episode of Stories of Service Ordinary People Who Do Extraordinary Work. And I'm the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And first off, I want to say happy holidays. This is a major time of year for a lot of us to get together with our family and friends. And you are all my family and friends. And so it's no different for me as well. And I thought that this time this would be a show that is unlike any of the other shows that I've done before. And in light of the holidays and family, I thought that I would introduce you to a little bit about my story and a person who has come into my life in the last few years. He is my birth brother, Andrew. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And I'm going to read you guys a little bit about the story of how this came to be. And then I'm going to just get right into the questions about Andrew, his life, and his story. So, several years back, I discovered I had two sisters and a brother on my birth mother's side. And I found this out years after I had been meeting up with my birth mother. I had found her when I was in my late teens and developed a rapport with her where I would go home on leave and I would see her and go to some of her AA meetings and other things. And I would just take her out for lunch. I even met her mother one day, and later on she passed away, and that's how I ended up years after acquainting with her sisters because of a law that came out. Sort of a long and complicated story, but during this time, though, I didn't even know that I had a brother. So, what had happened is we had a DNA match, one of those Ancestry and Me sites. And through that, Andrew's daughter found one of my sisters. And so today we're going to talk. And he's had an amazing life in the service to his country as a member of the National Guard and to his community as a firefighter. And some of the things we're going to discuss today is what service means to him, how we found one another as adults. We'll go into that, and what it feels like to be reunited with all these siblings. He was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, in 1978, 2 years after myself, and then raised in Toledo and Columbus. Andrew ran cross country in high school, received a 2-year associate's degree from Hacking College in Nelsonville, Ohio, Military Emergency Medical Services. And then from that point, he worked as a firefighter and EMT for Harrison Township Fire Department in Dayton, Ohio, from 1999 October to 2007. And then he moved to Colorado, joined the Wyoming Army National Guard in March of 2008, and then 3 years later deployed to Afghanistan with the Wyoming Cowboy Dust Off and served in the 10th Mountain and 82nd Airborne CAB. He was awarded 2 air medals while deployed and later hired by the Thornton Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic. And then in 2019, he went back to Afghanistan in the Wyoming Cowboy Dust Off as a platoon sergeant and served with the 1st Armored CAB. And while there, he was awarded 1 air medal. He then transitioned from firefighter paramedic to an engineer driver at the Thornton Fire Department. And in 2022, he was promoted to 1st sergeant in the Wyoming Army Guard unit. He is married to a wonderful wife who continues to moonlight as an emergency room nurse and has 3 children, Jordan, Asher, and Brandon, who is 10. They enjoy running, bike riding, snowboarding, and the Colorado sunshine. Welcome.
Well, thank you for that. First and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. I'm honored to be here, and it's exciting. No one likes. I say no one likes to hear someone talk about them. But when you were reading, some of the accomplishments, like as much as I don't like to, no one likes to hear their own stuff, like all that stuff. There's everything in there. I'm very proud to have been a part of.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on the show, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, I'm honored to have you. So, first off, I always ask anyone who has ever been in the military, which is the majority of my guests, what inspired you to join the military? How did that get started for you?
Sure. For me, I wish I would have been inspired younger. I was inspired to be a fireman at a younger age, and so I started my firefighting career path in October of '99 in the Dayton, Ohio area. And then I was a career firefighter for Harrison Township Fire Department in Dayton, Ohio on 9/11. And like everyone else, where you were on 9/11.
You do.
everyone, that's a whole, different show. And for me, being at work in Dayton, Ohio, home to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
Mhm.
After the first plane hit, it was within 15 minutes, we were standing outside on the front apron of the firehouse watching the jets just do they were doing like a perimeter, like around the Dayton airport and the Dayton metro area. Um, you know, that was an inspiring moment for me. So I wanted to join the military and do what I do best. And so I kind of started thinking, okay, so what's going to be my path? What am I going to do? So at the fire department, I, loved doing EMS. At that time, I was an EMT basic.
Mhm.
Just, is the initial level of emergency responder on the medical side. So I worked on my off days, and I went to Grant Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. Grant Hospital has a 9-month EMT paramedic program. So I worked as a full-time firefighter in Dayton for Harrison Township, and I went to paramedic school on my off days in Columbus, Ohio, for like 9 months as
Wow.
a paramedic, and then I wanted to join the Army as a paramedic. I had done research about what it takes to be a flight medic.
Mhm.
I wanted to work medevac was my goal. So I obtained my paramedic card, and then, fast forward 5 years, it's now 2007, and I have my paramedic card. My life is more stable with my daughter and her mom, and it was a good time for me to say, let's make this decision. So I joined in 2008, and I was almost 28 years old. So so I joined a little bit later. Um,
Mhm.
so that's how I joined.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that so many people were motivated and inspired after what happened with 9/11. You were just like, "Oh my god, this can't be real. That this is happening, and what are we gonna do about it?" And there were so many people, I was serving during 9/11, and, I was, uh I can remember, like you, exactly where I was. I was working night shift, and I had a phone call from my father saying, "Turn on the TV," and I woke up out of bed, and I saw the towers burning, and then there was just this chain of events of trying to get on base that day. I was a maintainer, working fixing aircraft at the time, and yeah, everything just changed after that in terms of like our schedule and what the jets were going to be doing and the missions that they were going to be flying on. So it's a crazy period for so many of us. What got you inspired? You said you started off wanting to be a firefighter. That was the path that you were down. And of course, that's the path that you're still on today. What was it in your childhood or growing up that inspired you to have such a dangerous job that most people would never take on?
I mean, I don't think it's a dangerous job. But that's just, what we do. I think it's so
Hmm.
similar to what we do in the military. Like we respond like that's not, so that job on the other side has always been easy for me.
Hmm.
I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and I had a couple friends' dads who were Toledo firefighters.
I see.
And I remember growing up, their dads were I'm serious, they were in the best shape. They were hanging out with their buddies all the time. They always had the nicest looking vehicles, the cleanest looking trucks. So for me, I'm like, man, those guys are doing it. Like they're in shape. They got a bunch of buddies. All their cars are nice and clean. What do they do? I want to do what they do. And
Hmm.
these guys were firemen, and I just kind of knew, after taking a couple visits, hanging around them, and then doing a couple visits to some firehouses, it was easy for me. Um, so didn't fall. I went into, I went into that career path directly after high school. I went to Hocking College. It was in Nelsonville, Ohio. It's just north of Athens. And that's where I got my initial firefighting schooling done. Um,
Hmm.
so I went there. I spent a year and a half at that school, and I was done.
So why the National Guard when you were looking at different places, different branches? Was it somebody that you knew, or what was it that why the Guard versus the Army, or I mean, or the regular Army or the Navy?
Sure. So for me, so I have a 24-year-old daughter named Jordan, who one of my reasons for wanting to join the military, back in 2008 was obviously, was the healthcare. That's a
Sure.
huge benefit. Like, so I was a single parent and I was helping co-parent my daughter, with her mom, and we needed insurance, and that it was the best way for me to guarantee she has insurance. And also, which she ended up using, I wanted to get the GI Bill so that I could give it to her, so that
Hmm.
I could say, hey, I can at least give her college, and
Right.
she can have this college. And she since used my GI Bill, and went to school. Uh, awesome story. Met her now current boyfriend, who was or was in the Marine Corps, still a Marine, obviously. But so yeah, so it was the also the insurance and wanting to be able to keep my daughter safe and provide for her.
What was it like early on in the military? Like, what were some of your early experiences? What did you think of it when you first joined? I mean, because you were joining too at at the height of when there was a lot of things that were going on. So what was that like initially for you?
I'm so proud of all the experiences that I got to experience. I think that some of my best experiences in the military are when I'm in transit and when I'm going from one place to the other, or you're, in the middle, not necessarily getting stuck as a holdover forever, but those in the middle stage, when you get stuck somewhere and you're there for a week and you start hanging out with people you never would hang out with, or you make new friends from complete different military walks of life, and you hear their story. Those are the moments for me that I'm very proud of and I'm excited. I got in when it was busy. It was busy.
Hmm.
I was 28, so I'm older. I try to keep low during basic training like everyone else and stay. You don't want to be, your goal is to get through with nobody knowing your name.
Right,
That's
right.
obviously the goal. And,
Hmm.
I'm not at that time. I wasn't the best leader. I was still a wild, 28-year-old, man. So I kept low and, was able to accomplish everything I needed to accomplish, and then, move on to my, Army calls it 68 whiskey. It's the combat medic school. So I went to the combat medic school, and then went to back to my home station, my traditional guard unit. You
Hmm.
asked why I joined the guard, um, because I shared the duties of raising my daughter with her mom, so we shared those duties. So for me, active duty was not on the table. I
Hmm.
was not able to commit to leaving
Sure.
because I couldn't bring my daughter with me because
Right.
her mom has rights as well, and so I had to find something in the middle that I could
Hmm.
still serve and still get, do what I wanted to do, but also, not be a full-time obligation. So the guard was perfect for me and has been perfect throughout my life, although it's very difficult to maintain, being a guard soldier as well as having a civilian life, job, family. As you get older, it's very difficult to maintain balance in all.
Yeah, it is. I really couldn't imagine, to be honest, about having the two sides. I mean, I'm on the active duty side, so all I worry about is my job, my job, my job, and then whatever I want to do on the side, that's great. But on for you guys, I have so much respect for people that have a civilian job and then stop their civilian job and then now are like, okay, I'm gonna go and do military stuff. I mean, there's a lot of us active duty that can benefit so much, I feel, from the reserve and the guard because you guys bring that professional experience of the what I call the real world or the civilian world that I just don't have. I mean, this has been all my life since I was 19, Andrew. So I don't understand a lot of those things. And so when you can bring that into the military, were there times that you were able to do that? Like take some of the stuff that you did as a firefighter or an EMT and bring that into your National Guard work?
So there's a real storied history on the level of the Army's like combat medic, flight medic, didactic knowledge, and where they gained their skill set at. Due to our conflicts overseas, we went from being primarily EMT basic was the level for flight medics in the early 2000s to fast forward now 2023, a flight medic in the United States Army is a critical care flight paramedic. They hold their FPC and they're a certified paramedic. So where they are now versus where they were in the early 2000s, or when I joined in 2008, they have significantly expanded the education level for what a baseline flight medic's skill set is. When I joined in 2008, the average was EMT basic. For the active duty flight medic, they were an EMT basic. A bunch of us Guard soldiers were joining during the wartime, and we were all paramedics on the civilian world. So a lot of them in the early stages, they paved the way for the change in the expanding of the protocols, expanding of what the flight medic can do, the capabilities, the didactic knowledge, the background. So I think that from a flight medic standpoint, the National Guard was very integral in moving forward. Now, where are we now? The Army flight medics are extremely, active duty. They are extremely intelligent now. They are, very well trained, very well versed, as are the Guard soldiers. So now I think we're at a point where, due to lessons learned, both are equal, and they provide an outstanding service now.
Yeah. What was that like for you? I mean, I saw that you were deployed to Afghanistan. Many of us in the Navy, we sort of have a bird's eye view of the wars because we were, of course, flying combat missions to and from, but it's not the same as the people who were boots on the ground like yourself, and especially in the job that you had. Um, Tell me a little bit about what you took away from that experience, like, and how you stayed resilient in a job like that.
Well, so I'm very proud of what the teams I was with were able to accomplish. I'm very proud. I'm one, just like we all are, I'm one piece in the whole system, and every piece has to do their job. Everybody has to do what they're there to do. In 2011, that was a very busy year. I wasn't injured. I had got some diesel fuel in my eye due to a MRAP rollover. Like I was on a medevac and I got some diesel fuel in my eye from, when we pulled, one of the soldiers out of the vehicle when it's upside down. And so I had to be transported like a week later to Germany. I got to take like a fever flight. So I was so lucky that I got to see the other side. I had been in country for, like roughly 8 months doing medevac nonstop, and back in 2011, we were averaging 3 to 7 medevacs a day, three to 7 in one day. Our aircraft launches and flies out to snag somebody. But at that time, we had like 130,000 service members, boots on ground in country. So this was during the surge. So I got some fuel in my eye. I had to take a fever flight from Afghanistan to Germany. I talked about some of the things I love the most, that being in transit. So I got to see the other side of the patients, the injured service members moving from like ballrooms, level 3 trauma center, back to Rams, back to Landstuhl in Germany. So I was a patient, but I wasn't, I was a walking wounded.
Right.
I was being transported to Germany to get an ocular pressure test. Very minor, low. I was fine. I just happened to be on. I was with the movement of the patients that were moving to the next. So I got to watch all the Air Force critical care nurses and docs, do their thing. I got to land on the tarmac in the patient seat, whatever we were in, a C5 or I don't know. And the Air Force, medical staff drives the bus out like you've seen in the videos, and they load the patients onto they hand load them into the bus, and then everybody immediately gets their doctors and their nurses. I'm proud that I got to witness that.
It's really neat that you got to see the back end of that, because you're the one you're the one that's loading the patients, but then you don't a lot of times see that other part of the process.
And the people that I met when I was at Landstuhl for like 3 days, I had my test, I was cleared. This is 2011, the height of the surge. Most soldiers weren't going back to Afghanistan from Landstuhl. So once I cleared Landstuhl Medical Center, they were just like, yeah, you're good. And I was like, all right, so what do I do? Like, I'm like an E5. I'm a sergeant, E5. Like, so what do I do? Like, well, I don't know. You just got to get out of here. So, because it was the surge and there were so many people, some of those, caught in transit times. So I ended up spending a week in Germany trying to get back to Afghanistan, going every day, going back and forth from the Rhine Ordnance barracks over to, Ramstein's a passenger terminal to try to get a flight back out. Anyway. Yeah. I might have digressed there. I apologize. I'm not sure how we got on that.
No. I think that's just it's interesting as you talk about your stories. I mean, it's one of those things where I know there's so many people who can relate, who have had these similar experiences. And I think that there's a whole part of history that I think still needs to be written about people's experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, and what the lessons learned were from that experience, and what we can do better going forward. What would you say are some of like the proudest moments that you had during that period?
I would say, some of my proudest moments. I think that our whole team that I went over there with, everybody came home. So we were very happy and very lucky. I'm just proud that I was able to be a part of that and just to witness that. Just the things that I got to witness is what I'm most proud of. I'm just very proud to be present for heroic acts that are happening. And I got to witness some of that stuff. That stuff is fun to watch. And it's fun to see. It's not always you who's the hero, but you get to you get to witness it.
Like, what did you see? Do you have an example?
I do have, this is a medical example, but anytime they would bring in mass casualties, from the ground, they would make a call over the radio or over the loudspeaker on the base, and they would say, this word. And then that meant all off-duty medical staff, had to come to the hospital. And we all had we trained with the hospital people. So we just worked one of the 4 trauma beds. Okay. So there's 4 trauma beds. I'm not going to get into anything gory. Okay. I'm not going to relive anything. So there's 4 trauma beds. And so there's 4 teams working these traumas, and there's 2 already in surgery. So there's no more room for surgery. So we're working this service member, and he stops breathing, and we're all at the table, and there's 4 of us. And I wish I knew the doctor's name. I don't know his name, but this doctor asked for the cart, and, within 8 seconds, had his sternum chiseled open and was massaging this soldier's heart. Like, He watched us. He saw that we started doing CPR. He like told some guy to get this. Within like 8 seconds, there's a cart. He does an incision. He chisels it, and he's like, I got this. And he's just sitting there, and he's just like doing this. And then he's now saying other orders like, okay, Nate, this is the med, this is this. He just totally takes charge and crushes it. And this soldier lived. Like his heart. I mean, if you can get a hand on somebody's heart within seconds of it stopping, the success rate's pretty high, because his heart stopped due to lack of blood. So they were fixing that,
right.
had been clamped. So, the problem had been solved. His heart had just stopped. So I got to witness, that's one event that I got to witness. And I'm very proud of moments like that, that you get to like, when am I ever going to see that? I'm never going to see that again. And I have seen a chest be cracked in the emergency department. I've seen it before. It's not that I haven't seen it. Just in that moment, it's all service members in the room. It's only us. And to watch this doctor this physician just do what was necessary immediately I was like, yes, that's what I'm here for. I'm glad I got to be a part of this.
I mean, Andrew, I'm so in awe of what you and your teams have done. I mean, I serve in the military, but I'm a storyteller and I'm a PAO. I've fixed airplanes before. I've done some other jobs, but I really do feel like you guys are the true like people that are getting into the thick of it and doing the hard, what I feel are some of the hardest and most challenging and most mentally draining parts of any job. I mean, really, anytime I've had a first responder on my show, I just have so much respect for the strength, the mental fortitude that it takes to do those kind of jobs. Because I just don't think I don't think that you guys give yourselves enough credit for the fact that there are most people don't have the strength to stay in this. And you've stayed in this, not only in the Guard, you do it in your civilian time. So I think my next question is, what has been your go-to throughout the years to stay strong with such a stress, with this kind of life and death stress?
So I do believe that it's only safe to see so much,
Right.
It's not safe for you to keep doing, to keep seeing that stuff over and over and over again. Like there's a point where you got to hit the brakes. For me, we said earlier, I was promoted to first sergeant. I was successfully able to stop flying when I promoted to first sergeant. And in my National Guard life, I was able to stop flying, which was a huge exhale. Okay, I can let go of all those flight requirements. I no longer have to maintain, flight status, all that stuff. And then that in my civilian life, and I worked on this, wanting to do this in a coordinated fashion. I switched from being a full-time firefighter paramedic at the fire department to being an engineer. So I'm no longer the one that's responsible for saving the life.
Right.
I'm the driver now. It's my job to get the hero, get the hero to the emergency safe and sound. And then the hero is going to get out and, they're going to do the life-saving measures. So for me, about, 3 or so years ago, I kind of backed off of the medicine. And I'm focusing more on other things in regards to, being a first responder.
Right.
I'm taking myself away from being the one that's on their hands and knees with doing the life-saving measures.
And you're also now in a place that you can mentor those people because you've been there, done that. And I think that's like the cycle of life, is to be able to do that. We did have a couple people who are watching or have joined us. My one friend, Tabby, she says, "How amazing, Teresa." A couple of my friends were kind of like that. This is really cool. Another friend of my husband's best friend, Brian, who tunes into many of my shows, says this is awesome. My friend Molly, she's also on the show. She said, "How'd you guys get in touch? What made this happen?" And I briefly explained it at the beginning, and I'll go over it again. But basically, your daughter had the idea. You did not, from what I understand, this wasn't something that you were like dying to know about or wanted more information on. It was just something that she wanted to explore, and you were kind of like, okay, yeah, if you'd like to look into it, go ahead. Or am I telling the story incorrectly?
No, that's correct. My daughter was very interested. She had done a bunch of research on her mom's side. Her mom is from a large Italian family in the Cleveland area. So she had done a bunch of her research on one side, and then she was, wanted to continue, doing an ancestry family tree. So she
Hmm.
did her own DNA, and then she did all the hard work for me. And then she took care of it. And then it was a few weeks later when we found out that there was someone that I think when it first came through, she was like, it's there a 99% match with me, my daughter Jordan, and me. She's like, it's either your sister or you have another daughter. So that's how I found out, and that was exciting to me because I I have always wanted to know, but this was, I wasn't quite. I guess I just didn't really quite understand how easy it was to send a sample into one of these DNA places, and if someone else is there, it's linked.
Right,
So
right.
my daughter did help me with that.
It was insane when I found out because, like I said, I had known that Peggy had many, many children over a course of, I think, a decade, maybe longer. I never really got the final number. It's hard because I would visit her routinely in my 20s. Like when I'd go home, it was part of my thing where I'd go home, see my parents, see Peggy. And we would talk about it, but I had no idea or no way that I knew of to ever locate any of my siblings. Like that just didn't even occur to me. And then when the Bureau of Vital Statistics in Ohio opened up records, that's of course how Katie and Ashley came along. But then to have you guys come, I was I was shocked. I really was. I was happy. And then to find out that you were in the military, that just was like crazy to me. Was that surprising to you too that we both served?
I mean, it was surprising. I was stoked. I felt like
Yeah.
instantly, oh, like we have so much in common with that. I felt like it was a great, that's a really good connection because, like, for regardless if we're birth siblings, like we're buddies,
Yeah.
we're gonna be buddies. Like if I met you somewhere, like we would have something to talk about. So
Yep.
it's fun, for that piece. And of course, I'm more interested in things that you've accomplished through through your service because of my own connection.
Right,
Um,
right. And I just think it's really neat to know where you come from and a little bit about your backstory because I think that each one of us siblings have had such a unique journey throughout our time and where we ended up and to think that there could be more siblings out there, that's kind of strange too. And I don't really I've tried to go on some of those sites since then and I haven't really kept up with it. I would assume that if somebody else came along, we would find out that they were there, but um, yeah, it's just one of those crazy kinds of things, and thank God for your daughter for going and doing that, you know?
yeah,
Yeah,
she
it's really
did. I
cool.
mean, I was happy she did. Like, so I mean, I have a question for you. So, I'm curious, what was, did she just like getting pregnant or what? I mean, like we said before,
Hmm. I don't think that was it. I think that it was a way to be taken care of. That was the sense that I got because she had, um, just not an ability to really live like, to have stable relationships, and I
sure,
think that this was a way for her to be, to have the stable relation she was very religious, so she didn't believe in abortion, was my understanding, and so
thankfully,
right, and then once she was pregnant, then there were service and she said she was gonna give up the child for adoption. This was a way for her to be for those months that she was, um, pregnant, to be taken care of. But I mean, there's 4 of us. I wanna say there's at least 2 or 3 more.
Wow.
She made it sound like there was a number of children over the course of many years that she was doing this. And I believe that and she did see it, I almost think too, as like a way to put children out into the world. Um, that was my understanding. You know, Peggy was a very complicated and kind of crazy, quirky lady. I mean, it's too bad you didn't get to know her. I really enjoyed her. She 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 was very spontaneous, very she was very manic. Like you have to keep up with her and but I don't know. I really enjoyed talking to her. I never judged her about the decision or anything. I just was grateful that I got that opportunity to get to know her. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know about any of her sisters or any of that. I did one day go to see her mother at a nursing home, Wesley Glen, and that was really neat. We got pictures out and we looked through the photo albums and yeah, I mean, it was really neat that I got that opportunity and I wish that you guys had gotten the same, but it's cool now that we can all still keep in touch and have this relationship. But
Very.
um I mean, I think that one of the greatest things about being adopted is the fact that you do have this opportunity if people want it, and some people don't, and I always respect that decision too. Some people don't wanna go down that path because it can be painful for them, but for me, it was something I always knew about. It was something that was never a secret from my parents. What did your adoptive family think about all of this?
I don't know how much my sister did. My sister was also adopted. I have a sister named Katie who was
Mhm,
also adopted. She did not have a very pleasurable experience, during her meeting with her birth siblings and birth mom and dad. So I know I told them, but I didn't big deal it, and they weren't really worried about me getting wrapped up in anything. They kind of knew that I was stable physically, mentally, and that whatever it was, I'd be able to handle it. So because of my sister's experience, I just kind of, I think I might have told them a little bit later, maybe. I don't even remember. I mean, they know. My father is still alive, Ed, and he's aware. I think he's happy for me that I met you all and that I have this, thing. I think he's happy for. He's happy that he received me as his son. So he doesn't. He's stoked that he was blessed. So
mhm. Yeah, and you were adopted, correct me if I'm wrong, like myself, through Catholic Social Services, and it was within just a couple months of you being born that you were adopted?
yeah, that's correct. I was born late October and I was placed mid January.
Okay. Yeah,
So
same kind of thing with
3
me.
months. Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about what it's been like to continue on with the being in the military and then doing your job at the same time. You said that it's been kinda hard to balance the 2. How long do you plan on staying in the Guard? Is this gonna be something that you continue to do, or are you gonna kinda taper off at some point?
Well, I have like almost 16 years in the Guard, so I'm like
Okay.
4 more years, before I'm eligible. In the Guard, we do our 20-year Guard commitment, and then we're eligible to collect at 60 minus any years overseas. So
Mhm.
so I'm like, okay, I'm like 58 because I have like almost like that much time. Um, I'm 44. It's like 14 more years. Okay, I'm probably going to do this the 4 years. And I'm probably going to get out.
Mhm.
It's a great journey for me. It's been a great journey. I've loved every piece of it. Um, I feel, I mean, I'm glad I'm on the legacy retirement system.
Me
I
too.
feel for, yeah, I feel for the new soldiers, the new service members that aren't. Um, I, I wish that didn't, go down that way because I'm seeing young service members that just aren't putting money in, to their for a savings
Yeah.
account like they should be, and we're going to be in for a rude awakening. I'm happy that I'm in the legacy. So my plan is to fulfill my 20-year commitment, retire
Mhm.
from the National Guard, and then continue to further my career at my full-time employment. Um,
Mhm.
which it's hard to do both.
Yeah.
I mean, being a full-time firefighter and then being in the Guard is a lot of time away from home.
Yeah,
it's a
and
lot.
you have kids. You have young kids.
It's a
Yeah.
lot for every, you know, even when we lose one weekend a month doing my guard obligation, that's still 3 more days away from my family. Um,
Right.
I prefer not to have
Right.
outside of my already away job of being a firefighter.
Mhm.
It gets to be hard. It's tough. Being in the guard, at least in an aviation unit, that's one of the things I've learned throughout my military travels is a lot of, well, just the guard obligation has increased. The
Mhm.
requirement to maintain your status is increased. It's not only one weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. Now, I'm not saying don't join. I'm
Right.
absolutely saying join. Join. There's many benefits with it, but it is more than one weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
lot.
I feel the same way about public affairs. It's people can say and people can define my job however they like. They can
Sure.
ask for as much as they want because there isn't it's a creative field. And so there isn't a limit of what people expect out of a public affairs officer. So
Sure.
you have to set the priorities. And if you don't have the resources, which many of us don't, it can be very stressful because you always feel like you're letting somebody down. And then you have to decide how much do you have to pull back on what to make people happy or to give this particular story the attention and the care that it needs. I feel you on that. At some point, something has to give, and that's part of life is prioritizing and deciding. What is going to be the way that you want to best spend your time as you grow older, and who those people are you want to surround yourself with. And family is most important in my opinion.
Mhm.
So, what as you look back now, as on your career as a first responder, what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about going down a similar path and deciding to go into this kind of career? What would you tell them?
It's a great career path. I love being a first responder. Um, I would say take it slow. I see a lot of young, eager first responders, working in some parts of the country on the East Coast. I would say most firefighters work 2 or 3 jobs at once. They're an EMT here, they're a volunteer firefighter for this place, and then they're full time at this other place. Um, and
Wow.
and so they just get, because the pay on the East Coast is very different than the pay on the West Coast. The pay on the West Coast, I would say most firefighters do not have most first responders do not have second jobs. First responders on the East Coast absolutely have second jobs. Um,
Hmm.
so for them, I would say take it slow. It is a great career, but you don't want to burn yourself out. You're going to get the calls. You're going to get the experience. It's going to come. So just take it slow.
Um, as we start to kind of wrap up the call, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you'd like to address to the audience or you want to talk about or ask me about?
I can't think of anything. I'm honored to be on your show. This has been fun. Chatting about my service and your service. Um, I am. It's interesting when I was reading up on you going from enlisted, and then working. Like, how long were you enlisted prior to making this change in your life?
So I got selected when I was at about the 8 year mark, and then I commissioned as a naval officer in 2006. So that was 10 years. So 10 years. I joined in 1996. That's when I enlisted, and then 10 years later, I was a Navy ensign. So 10 years I was enlisted.
So, I mean, what a great experience for you, because for me, there are, whenever I have came in contact with officers that were enlisted, I like some of the other side of them that they're able to bring
I
because
agree.
I mean, that's awesome.
I think it makes me more of a doer. than I see some of the other officers that haven't had that experience. And then the side of I've I've done all the I've been where they've been. Like I've had, for an example, on an aircraft carrier, I've been in a 120 bed berthing area. I didn't always have a stateroom, right? I there was, I was working night check, getting dirty and greasy and fixing airplanes, and uh, I, I've done the hard jobs. I feel like, to be able to, say that I understand that it's not always easy, and it's gotten to be, I think, like you said too, a little bit harder too these days, because I do believe that we're facing, as we know, a recruiting and a retention crisis. And I think that the people like you and me who are still in, um, sometimes now have to pick up the slack and do a lot more with a lot less, because there just aren't people, and there isn't the money sometimes to do everything that you want to do. So yeah, I'm grateful for having that time enlisted, and I know that that gives me a perspective, on things that sometimes, others don't. And really, I do like to do the things, as we say at my work. There's the people who like to talk about doing the things but don't really do the things, and then there's people that get their hands dirty and do the things. And my boss is the same way. He'll do the things, and we all respect him because of that. He'll get dirty when he needs to. In our world, in our storytelling world, it's a little different than yours. But he'll write a speech, or he'll do things that, to help pick up the load when we're really swamped. And that's hopefully, something that I've seen in the leaders that I respect, and I like to think that I'm the same way. So yeah, so I think it definitely helps. All right. Well, I just really want to thank you so much for doing this. I know you're not a, podcast social media person. You're not the typical person I'd have on sometimes, who has, something that they're trying to promote, or something that they would like to say or share. But you've shared so much with me, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to do this, Andrew.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. It's been fun. I mean, I would like to ask, like, so I'm curious. Do I have like a few more minutes with you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm curious, like, don't, I'm not asking specifics, but like, are you planning what's next? Like after
Yes.
your military life is over, like what's next?
Yes. So,
What do you want to do? What do you want to do? I'm very curious.
yeah, so I've been in 27 years. So at
Yeah,
this point, yeah, long time. And I have one more tour. I have not yet made it official. Where I'll tell you as soon as we get off the call where I'm going next this summer.
sure.
But
Yes,
I will be announcing it, hopefully when we go to Portugal next month. I'd like to be on a nice beach with my husband, and we have a little plan to put a video together to announce it. But after that tour, which I'm not sure how long that tour is going to be, the plan, to be quite honest, is not yet decided. Is TBD. Part of me having this podcast was to build sort of this, plan in my mind of what this next chapter looks like. I have enough money that I will not need to work, because we live very frugally, and I have a lot saved. And the goal really is to continue to we have an Airbnb in Norfolk. We'd like to get another one somewhere else where we're moving, and have that as passive income. And then really, I have a lot of causes that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about advocacy for animals. I'm passionate about changes within the military, from some of the systemic issues that I've seen, particularly with the military justice system. And so I would like to be a full-time advocate, really, and just be a person who has these causes, and brings people on my show, and to visit with my friends and family, and just be me. I mean, really, it isn't doesn't get more, I guess, simpler than that. I want to travel, or get an RV. I want to travel all over the country with my husband, and maybe even all over the world. There's still world places that we would like to see, and that's pretty much it.
that's a great plan.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
sounds awesome.
I had this plan in my 20s. Well, as soon as I got picked up for my officer program, um, I felt like I needed to save up enough so that I would never have to work after the military if I didn't want to.
Sure.
And so that was the plan. So at this point, I'm not really looking to have a second job after this.
Or if you do have one, it's something. It's obviously you have to enjoy it. It's something
Right,
that you want to do. It's sure they
right.
pay me, but I do it for free.
Right. It's
Yeah,
like if the right opportunity comes along and it's the right cause, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, and it's the leadership and the team is amazing, then yeah, I'll jump right in and I'm in, you know. So it all depends on what opportunity comes along and we'll just have to see where that takes us. But this has been such a pleasure. I'm so excited that you agreed to do this. And I will meet you backstage to say goodbye, but I will go full screen here in just a second and do a quick closeout. But thank you all for joining us on this show. And Andrew, thank you again so much for your time.
absolutely. Thank you. And to everybody listening, happy holidays for, to you, to all the service members that aren't at home, like yourself, that aren't at home for the holidays. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, I second that. Happy holidays to all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a very special show, as all my shows really are. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your evening and take care now and talk to you all later. Bye.